My entitled crazy friend ruined our vacation to France by faking multiple mental illnesses just to try and get her way. And right now, after all is said and done, I am completely blown away by her entitlement, as well as the way that she treated me during this trip. Here's what happened. Okay, for the sake of the story, I'm gonna call my friend Elizabeth. Elizabeth is not her real name. I've known Elizabeth, who's 23 years old, for the past 2 years, going on 3. Because we live in the same European country, one with good public transportation, we are able to visit each other often, maybe once or twice a month without breaking the bank, and I've never had any major issues with her. Occasionally, she would snap at me for being a few minutes late to events, which is fine, but never like this. Now, the thing about Elizabeth is that she is a serial dater. This woman has a new boyfriend every 1 to 3 months. I am all for women living their own lives, but my God, she would almost always call me after a breakup, crying to me about how her ex was awful to her and how there were no good men in the world anymore. I was there for her, I was sympathetic, I thought she simply got dealt a bad hand when it came to men, but I've recently come to the realization that she was the problem the entire time. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and she just got out of another relationship, and naturally she was devastated and wanted to take her mind off of things. I suggested planning a mini weekend vacation to France, meaning that this would be our first vacation together. She was overjoyed and took me up on the offer. We were able to find a cheap hotel in a very well-known city, and one of my friends, who we will call Mary, also not her real name, was able to come along with us. So, Mary, Elizabeth, and I took off to France. The first day was lovely, just absolutely lovely. The weather and the people and the food and the transportation were all top tier. Elizabeth then told me that she had plans for us the whole next day, from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. And I thought to myself, that's great. At around 8 o'clock p.m. after dinner, I told her that we should head back so that we can rest up for tomorrow. But Elizabeth just didn't like that. She said that she really wanted to go clubbing. So I thought to myself, okay, cool. I told her that we could go, but I would rather not stay out too late because I'm someone who needs my 8 to 9 hours of sleep, especially before going on an all-day outing. And when I said that, she was cool with it. So we go to a bar and then leave to the club at 11 o'clock p.m. To spare you the details, the club was great. Mary, Elizabeth, and myself are big on dancing, so we were having a blast. It was about 1:30 in the morning when I told Elizabeth that we should start heading home, but she said to me, "No, I want to party." So I said to her, "Yeah, girl, me too. But if you want to participate in the morning activities, I need to go home." She sighed and then begged me for just another hour. Well, this hour turned into 3 in the morning, and when I asked to go home again, she started tearing up and said to me that she needed this night out after her breakup. So we ended up staying until 6 in the morning. The bouncer had to clear us out because we were the only ones on the dance floor. She told Mary and I that the bouncer was awful for kicking us out because, according to her, technically the club closes at 6:15 and not at 6. She also added by saying, "The bouncer probably has nothing better to do and should be cheated on by his wife." I asked her what her reasoning was behind saying that, and she says, "Oh, I mean, he obviously has issues if he doesn't want to see people happy, so he should also be unhappy." And when she said this, she was absolutely serious, by the way. She was that upset that we got kicked out 15 minutes early. Well, we arrive at the hotel at 6:40, and just as we are about to go in, Elizabeth says that she's hungry. I tell her that I'm heading inside and that she can eat with Mary, but again, Elizabeth doesn't like that. She pouted and said to me, "It would really mean a lot to me if you did something as small as eat with me." So, of course, I go to McDonald's with her. The line was super long, and we didn't get served until about 7:20 in the morning. The whole time in the line, she was telling us about her ex-boyfriends and how they all said she was too much to handle, and how they were awful for saying that because apparently all women have emotions that men need to understand, and they always refuse to educate themselves. And I honestly laughed internally. I thought to myself, yeah, okay, Elizabeth. We eat and arrive at the hotel at around 7:40, and Elizabeth actually said that she's going to set an alarm for 9:30 in the morning. Also, we don't miss breakfast at the hotel. I told her that I didn't want to eat breakfast and I would rather sleep in. Thankfully, Elizabeth didn't say anything and we all just fell asleep. Well, sure enough, just like clockwork, her alarm goes off at 9:30, and she tells Mary and I to wake up and get ready for food. But when she did that, I just said no. I want to sleep for a little bit longer as I didn't get much sleep at all. She then turns to me and exclaims, "You're ruining this vacation. Seriously, it's just breakfast." So I respond back by saying, "Yeah, it's just breakfast. I don't need to eat. I'll eat later." Elizabeth then becomes really quiet and then leaves the hotel room for breakfast. Mary joins her, and I just close my eyes to go back to sleep, and they return at about 10 o'clock. When they return, Elizabeth is silent. I ask when we're going to leave the hotel to get our day started. She says to me, "Well, you're already ruining it, so I don't know." At about this time, I'm pretty fed up with her, so I say to her, "Okay," and then I go back to sleep. Elizabeth and Mary ended up sleeping until 1 o'clock p.m., and I got up a little bit earlier than them to get ready. Well, they take 2 hours to get ready, so we don't even end up leaving until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, mind you, the entire time Elizabeth isn't speaking to Mary or myself. Mary asked her what's going on, and I just sat there and I was like, "Girl, I have no idea." We thought it would be great to start our day thrifting and then heading to a cheap cafe for lunch. When we arrive at the thrift store, Elizabeth sits on the floor and stares at her feet. I ask her what's wrong, and she replies by saying, "It's just that you and Mary are disrespecting my time and the day is ruined. We have no time to do things that I planned. I'm also in a lot of pain due to my illness." When she said that, I apologized and I asked her what her illness was, because this is the first time I'm hearing anything about it. She said to me, "You know, I'm just generally mentally ill and sometimes it gets worse." I apologize again and I say to her, "Elizabeth, I'm really sorry. I didn't know you were diagnosed with something. What can I do to help you out?" She then said to me, "Oh, I'm not officially diagnosed, but I know I have OCD and multiple personality disorder. I've been going to a new therapist every other week, but I haven't found one that will give me medication. They're all old and they don't understand my issues. Oh God, I'm so tired and I have a headache. I want to eat some food." Well, I called Mary over and I told her that we're going to the cafe a little earlier than planned. We reached the cafe and I purchased 2 coffees as a treat for the girls, one for Mary and one for Elizabeth. As a side note, I don't drink coffee. Elizabeth glared at me and said, "You didn't even ask what I wanted. You just bought me some coffee. Are you being serious right now?" After she said that, I apologized and offered to get her some tea or some water, but she just rolled her eyes and went to sit at a table. Mary was extremely stressed and told me that she didn't know how to help Elizabeth and asked me what to do, but I just looked at her and I shook my head because seriously, I had no idea myself. The day goes on and Elizabeth is mostly unresponsive, aside from her complaining about Mary. Now, here's the thing. Mary has done nothing wrong this entire trip. Admittedly, she likes to stand at attractions for just a little bit too long, but we're on vacation, and it really isn't a big deal if you want to stare at the Eiffel Tower for 30 minutes rather than just walk by it, which Elizabeth wanted to do. In fact, Elizabeth, whenever Mary would leave to use the restroom, would latch onto me and start saying, "Oh my God, she is holding us back. I'm so mad at her. Why is she taking forever? It's just the stupid Eiffel Tower." I told her that we're on vacation and we should accommodate everyone's wishes within reason. Her response to that was pouting and going back to being quiet. Now, the deal breaker though was what happened between Mary and Elizabeth. Mary was trying so hard to be tolerant of Elizabeth and her mental issues, but this is the single thing that just completely broke it. Mary wanted to get cash out of an ATM, and the ATM itself was maybe about a 5-minute walk away from an attraction that Elizabeth wanted to see. Well, Elizabeth started to argue with Mary that we didn't need cash and that it was going to take up too much time from their trip. Yes, you heard that right. The 5-minute walk to the ATM was too much of a walk. Well, Mary responded by saying, "Okay, but I want cash, so I'm going to go get some cash. You can come with me or you can keep acting like a baby. Not everyone around here is going to give you the princess treatment." Well, as you can probably imagine, Elizabeth was very unhappy with that. She actually turned to me to look for help, but I just shrugged my shoulders and said, "I mean, it is a 5-minute walk." Now, this was at around 6 o'clock p.m., and soon after, we headed to a restaurant for dinner. The entire time, Elizabeth didn't say a word. She pointed at the menu items instead of saying what she wanted to the waiter, and during the middle of the meal, Elizabeth burst into tears. Mary and I tried to cheer her up by offering to buy dessert and maybe go to a spa afterwards, but Elizabeth wasn't having it. She just returned to being quiet while we finished our meals. On the way back to the hotel, she said, "I'm sorry, that was one of my multiple personalities. I can't control myself when that happens. You two have given me so much stress today. I couldn't help but let my personalities out." She then says to me, "This is all very triggering for me because my ex-boyfriend from 3 years ago didn't understand how to deal with my mental issues, and it looks like you two don't know how to deal with them either. You need to better educate yourself about mental illnesses because you don't know which one of your friends or coworkers have them." Well, when she said that, Mary and I just looked at each other with wide eyes. Like seriously, how do we respond to that? We arrive at the hotel and Elizabeth and Mary are dead quiet. They're just scrolling on their phones. I hear Elizabeth sniffling every now and then, trying to hold back her tears. years. And both of them are texting me talking garbage about each other. Elizabeth was complaining about Mary, and Mary was rightfully so complaining about Elizabeth. And this literally went on for 2 hours. I finally say, okay guys, so what are we doing tonight? And both of them let out a sigh and turn in the opposite direction of me. So as you can probably guess, we didn't go out. At around 10 o'clock p.m., they decided to give it a go in talking it out in front of me. Both of them expressed how much pressure they were feeling throughout the trip, and eventually they made up, but by then it was too late to get ready because the bar we wanted to go to closed within an hour. On the way back home, we hop in a car from a carpooling app. The guy picked us up at a specific location and was set to drop us off at a specific location. Well, Elizabeth thought that the drop-off location was too far away from her home, so she told me to tell the driver to drop us off directly at her house. But I told her no, the driver is only supposed to drop us off at the drop-off location on the app, and if we were to drive to her house, it would be an extra 50 minutes just to drive there. Well, as you can probably guess, Elizabeth became quiet again, and after an hour in the car, she texted me and said, "You're being a pushover. You have to stand up for yourself in situations like this. It is very unfair for him to drop us off so far away, especially from my home. You need to speak up." Now, when she said this, I of course replied by saying, "No thank you. We agreed on a drop-off location, and it would be unfair to change it at the last minute." Now, as you can probably guess, she didn't speak to me after arriving home. Now, at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I've never met someone so difficult to be with ever. I mean, where should I go from here? Should I confront her about her behavior, or should I do something else? What should I do? Okay, this is the funniest thing I've ever read in my life, because Elizabeth is absolutely out of her mind. Like, dude, she faked a mental illness just so she could try and get her way. She ruined this trip by being so entitled and was complaining anytime she didn't get her way. Like, literally, nothing was ever good enough. Like, why are you even friends with this lady in the first place? This does not sound like a good friend. If anything, this sounds like a very selfish person who will literally say or do anything to try and get her way. So if I was in your shoes, I would drop her like a ton of bricks. I would say, no, we are no longer friends and I'm never spending time with you ever again. Like, why would you want to be friends with someone like that? She is very clearly obnoxious to be around. She is very high-strung, and she clearly has no wiggle room for anything in her life. Like, that sounds absolutely miserable, and I really think that you can find better friends. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my husband's parents and sister to not use me in their sick and twisted scheme to erase my husband's late wife? Because right now, they're saying that I overreacted, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm married to a widower. We've been married for 4 years, together for 6, and we've known each other for 8 years. We met at a grief support group as I lost my sister to cancer around the same time that he lost his late wife. We bonded and supported each other, and our relationship happened slowly over the 2 years of being friends. Now, one thing I have always known is that his love for his late wife has never faded. In fact, he never wants it to fade. He misses her every single day, and so do his children. He struggled with the idea of finding someone else, not least of all because his family started pushing 13 months after his loss. In time, he wanted this himself, and we fell in love. But I have always known that there would be no us without his loss. I was never jealous or insecure of that. I mean, I love his love for his late wife. It tells me how amazing he is as a person. It's also good for his kids to see the love he still holds for their mom. My sister's widower remarried after 6 months and has erased my sister with their children. He stopped me having a relationship with them as well, and I absolutely hate it. The kids being good with us was the most important thing to us when we became something more. The only condition they had to their support was their mom. They didn't want her to be forgotten. They didn't want my husband to stop talking about her or for her photos to disappear from the house. Now, some did come down, but they're still in the house, just not on the walls, and there are still photos of her around. And you know what? It works. I tell my daughter, who's 2 years old, and I will tell my son that I'm pregnant with, that she's their big sibling's mom and daddy's late wife. They will know who she is and what she means to our family. But my husband's parents and sister don't like that my husband's late wife is still very much loved and kept alive. Simply put, they just didn't like her. They didn't approve of my husband getting married at 20 and loving someone who came from a very unfavorable family, and they judged her very harshly for it. They think that I'm far better and expect me to to replace her. They were especially horrified that my husband keeps photos of her in his wallet and on his desk at work, and there are also photos of me in both. Recently, they brought this up with me and told me that I should forbid my husband from doing this. They said it is horribly disrespectful to me, and it has prevented my husband's teenage children from truly embracing me as their mother. They told me to march right up to him in front of everyone and tell him that he cannot keep the photos of his dead wife anymore. It bothered me so much that they were so callous about it. So I told them straight up to not use me in their sick and twisted scheme so that they could erase my husband's late wife, because I wanted no part of it. They focused on the sick and twisted aspect, and they are now saying that I called them sick and twisted and accused me of overreacting to their support. My husband was furious with them when he heard about this and told them to be thankful that his kids didn't hear about this. So honestly, am I the jerk for saying what I did to my husband's family? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk, because what they were planning to do really was sick and twisted. Like, their plan to get rid of his late wife and try to pretend like she didn't exist is just so disgusting. Like, seriously, that is so messed up. And if this really is coming from some kind of grudge they had with his late wife, where they're basing this off of a decision that was made years ago, like, that is so disturbing and so uncalled for. And it really shows how much they just don't care about their son. They would rather make him miserable by trying to erase his late wife from his life instead of embracing what's happening right now and be okay with him still loving his late wife. Because the fact that they actually tried to do this is so uncalled for. And if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would ever put up with that. A woman calls my animals pests in my own home, even though I'm trying to sell her daughter one of my snakes. And I'm just so glad to have that lady out of my house because her attitude the entire time was so obnoxious. Here's what happened. Okay, I will never understand calling someone's pet disgusting just because you don't like that type of animal, let alone in someone else's home. If that person has such a gross animal as a pet, they probably love that animal as much as they would a cat or a dog. So for a bit of context, I live in an apartment complex on the 9th floor, and I have a ton of animals, including pet rats, which I bred, and it's all as a hobby that I'm very passionate about. I also own a bunch of reptiles, which is an odd combination, but I love both equally. And I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is immediately clear if you come in that they are well taken care of. So I was looking to rehome one of my ball pythons, and when rehoming a reptile, I make sure they go to a good home where they will have as much space and expertise as here, if not more. So I found someone with a lot of experience as well as a ton of space for this little guy. And this is where the story unfolds. I welcomed the new owner into my home to pick up the snake, who was a very nice young woman. She was together with an older woman who I assume was her mother, and her mother immediately went off about how terrified she was of heights, which is not an issue, of course. I am also scared of heights, and a lot of visitors say that they don't like how high up my house is. I tried to say that I was also scared when I first moved in, but she very loudly spoke over me and didn't even look at me. So I didn't really think much of it, and then I just moved on. I then opened the door to my living room, and the first thing this woman sees is some of my rats. She then loudly exclaims, "This house is also filled with vermin." Now, I don't live in an English-speaking country, so this is not exactly what she said, but more or less it is the same. Her tone the whole time was just loud and mean and very judgmental. As someone with rats and snakes for pets, I am used to people giving me reactions like this. So instead of getting mad, I tried to tell her I love these animals a lot. She once again didn't listen and just spoke over me. And this is where normally I would just kick her out, but the daughter seemed very ashamed of her mother, and I also just wanted this sale to happen. I mean, it's not her fault after all. Also, considering the mother also owned reptiles, I thought it was weird that she would respond this way, since she probably knows what it's like when people say this about her own pets. Anyways, I just ignore the woman, and I talk with the daughter, who was super sweet the entire time. My guess is that she doesn't bother telling her mom to stop, because it probably just makes things worse. I also mentioned how I was saving up for a service dog, but the mom couldn't help but say, "In this house?" The daughter then scoffed at her comment, and I guess she said that because I live in an apartment, but I am always at home and I have all the time in the world to walk my dog. Or maybe because my living room was a bit messy when this happened. Either way, it's not for her to judge on so little information. Both me and my boyfriend felt like slamming the door in her face after that comment, and I think if she made one more comment, I probably would have. I honestly just felt bad for the daughter. Luckily, they left after that, and I got some nice pictures of the snake in his now home, and I am so happy that he went to a good home. But next time, I think the mom should definitely stay in the car. Yeah, that's a really rude thing thing to say in somebody else's house. You don't just walk in and be like, oh my god, there's vermin everywhere. This place is a mess. As well as just act rude and really loud and obnoxious the entire time. It's like you do know you're a guest in someone else's property, right? Because the least she could have done is be on her best behavior and try to be respectful in someone else's home. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.